following media reports that highlighted the issue of sexual violence, especially in schools. And at this point, they were looking at Chibuli, SS, and Makerere University. The National Female Youth MP, Honorable Anna Deke, moved a motion on the floor of Parliament for Parliament to have a resolution on sexual violence. Parliament went ahead and formed a select committee. This was in April 2018. 6 months later, what we know is there's been no report from that committee. What's going on? Who is handling the issue of sexual violence? Who is ensuring that our children are safe in learning institutions? Welcome again to Face the Citizens. Our panel for this discussion, the Honorable Anna Deke, National Female Youth MP. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Also
in studio, Honorable Matthias Mpuga. He is the Shadow Minister for Education. He is the MP for Masaka Municipality. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great being here.
Also in studio, Ms. Susan Achen. She is a lawyer. She is from the Uganda Women's Network, also known as UONET. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And finally, from the Ministry of Education, Madam Angela Nakafero. She is a gender officer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Adeke, let's start with you. Since you moved a motion on the floor of Parliament, what has happened from the time you moved the motion?
Thank you very much, Gabriel. I want to thank you as Face the Citizens for giving audience to this issue, because you're one of the platforms that will speak out to Ugandans about sexual violence in schools. So since I moved the motion, the Select Committee was named. It's being chaired by Honorable Rabogo. She's in the Vice Chair of the Legal and Parliamentary...
Robina Rabogo, is that the name?
Robina.
Rakojo,
yes. Sorry. Honorable Robina Rakojo, she's the MP of Gomba West, and she's the Vice Chair of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. She's chairing the committee alongside several other members. There are 2 youth MPs who are sitting on the committee. The membership is very solid, I trust it. And since the committee was named, I have had audience before the committee. I was the first to have audience as the person who moved the motion, to inform them about why I moved the motion and the other information that they needed to hear in camera.
Okay.
But away from that, different institutions have had audience before the committee. The latest was the judiciary on Thursday, the 19th of October. The judiciary, the chief registrar, had audience with a committee to share statistics about sexual violence in institutions of learning, cases that had been received by the courts, being the chief registrar. And I think on that day, on Thursday, the chairperson informed the public that the committee was going to start field work, which involved them traveling to some institutions which they had received information had this vice within them. So that's the progress of the committee, and I would say so far so good.
All right, so far so good. I will not take it for granted that the people in the audience today and those watching us at home by television know what exactly caused you to move this motion. So the issue of sexual violence has been with us for a while. How come you moved this motion in Parliament at the time when you did in April?
Well, I think it was timely to move the motion at that moment because there were so many things that were happening. In the aftermath of the death of the proprietor of the St. Lawrence schools, some of the truths that were revealed were that he had sired children with teenagers who were previously students of St. Lawrence, one of the St. Lawrence schools. But away from that was the Chibuli situation, which was before us. Our head teacher, who had been abusing and violating girls, he had been moved from a different school. I think it was Mbogo. He had been head teacher before in that school and had left the same record, and now been moved to Chibuli, where he had been doing the same thing. So, but even bigger than that was Makerere University, the #1 institution of higher learning in our country, wherein one of the NBS TV
Journalist.
reporters, yes,
Raymond
journalist,
Mujuni.
exactly, credit to Raymond Mujuni, did an undercover story that covered the situation and life experience of a young lady who had been the victim of sexual violence by her lecturer. So you see, all these settings are happening in institutions of learning,
All right.
schools, yes, which are ideally supposed to be safe spaces. I mean, we take girls to school so that we can protect them from some things. And one of them is sexual violence. We take them to school so that they can make the best out of their future.
All right.
And the school environment is ideally supposed to be one of the safest, even safer than the home environment. So if we have the school environment being infected by individuals who are making it very risky for girls to be in those environments, then we need to uproot them. But more than that, Parliament is right now in the process of looking at the Sexual Offences Bill. And it was a ripe period for us to inform what the bill should look like.
All right.
Now that we had this situation before us and we are going to pass the law, we need the law to be informed by crises like this one.
All right. Honorable Mpuga, Parliament is handling this issue. It's before Parliament. It's been before Parliament for about 6 months. We cannot say that Parliament was hearing about this for the first time. As an MP, particularly Shadow Minister for Education, what's your assessment of Parliament's handling of the issue of sexual violence, especially in learning institutions?
Well, first of all, we need to help our viewers appreciate what sexual violence is all about. Okay. Because sex per se is not a reflex action. You know, it's a human activity, but out of adult consent. And anything devoid of consent connotes violence. And Parliament, as a body charged with enacting laws to safeguard the welfare of society, we cannot run away from that cardinal duty of making sure that if values of society, if the communities are not able to protect their own, then the laws must be, must be put in place to force people to respect what is supposed to be respected. As such, I contend the fact that Parliament now handling the Sexual Offences Bill, of course a private member's bill brought by the Honourable
Omoding, yes,
Omoding,
yes.
Is supposed
Monica
to
Omoding.
Monica Omoding is supposed to help us to consolidate other legislations that have offences relating to sex, including the Children's Act, including the Penal Code Act, domestic violence. We also have the Venereal Disease Act. Heard of that? Yes. So these are scattered legislations. We did receive the honourable member in my committee for legal, and we had the Minister for Justice trying to oppose this bill. That will be a duplication of existing legislations. But as a committee, we are contented with the fact that this law is necessary to consolidate the different scattered legislation relating to sexual violence. And I'll be one person to support this particular bill now before a committee of Parliament to consider it.
Okay.
And in the circumstances of the situation mentioned, I believe the Honourable Anna Deke was spot on to try and provide the necessary highlights to bring into perspective the general public to understand and appreciate what their role would be in trying to put in place a law that will mirror the concerns, the worries, the expectations, and the aspirations of our society.
Is the society worried about the issue of sexual violence?
I believe so if you really clear open up the entire meaning of sexual violence. Like I said, sex per se is not a reflex action. It's a human activity, but you see the word consent as relates to sex is very, very important.
Right.
And violence per se is not violence against, when you talk about sexual violence in universities as a center point, we forget the fact that it involves even rape, defilement, and all other forms of vices that relate to violations of, people's rights by people trying to glorify sex, to supersede human understanding.
Okay.
I believe when humans become animals, we have to gazette them, and the only place to gazette them are legislations. So I contend that these laws are very important when human nature is lost and the animal instincts in the humans supersede human understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable, I'm going to come back to you, but not to hear about, the gazetting people and whatever. Let's bring Uyonet into the discussion. How big an issue, Uyonet, yes, how big an issue is this? The issue of sexual violence, especially in learning institutions. And can legislation be the solution to fixing it?
Sexual violence is a very big issue, and you'd asked Honorable Mpuga whether society is concerned enough, and I think we are not paying due attention to it. The reason we do not pay due attention to it is because we live in a society where sexualization of language, the reading material, the music we listen to, even the way people relate is acceptable. So it's a big issue because it is not right, but we feel that it is okay for people to use disrespectful language. It's okay for people to touch others in a way that violates their dignity. And you find at the end of the day, even the victims themselves, the survivors themselves, do not know that it is a problem. And that is why the issues are larger than we think. The other reason why it is a big something that we need to pay keen attention to is because sexual violence is the kind of activity that goes on in private. It happens in private, so there is little evidence of it. When a report is made, the survivors are usually questioned, they are doubted, so that is a bit stigmatizing to them. And in that very sense, we lose focus of the repercussions of sexual violence. Okay. You'll find there are health implications to it. There are implications of empowerment. If you look at, if I give you the example of a girl child in any of our villages, if she's, say, defiled, she might drop out of school because maybe she has conceived, or simply because of the social stigma attached to sexual offenses. Right. And that is why it is something that needs to be given due prominence, to let society know that it is not okay to use dirty language or to use, when we talk to children, we tell them bad touches. But it's very common even on the streets of Kampala. You're walking on the street and someone says, sister, size wange, and they tap you.
Or goes kss.
And that is all, yes.
All right.
In the markets. That's all harassment. That's all sexual.
And will legislation fix the problem?
Legislation is just one of the ways to fix the problem.
All right. I will come back to you. Let's bring the ministry in just before we go for a break. This issue seems to be so big, especially in institutions of learning where we thought our students, our learners are safe. What's the ministry doing about it?
Thank you very much. Of course, I add my voice to the previous speakers. The issue of sexual violence is huge. And for us as a sector, we are not only looking at sexual violence, we are looking at violence against children in schools in a broader perspective, sexual violence being one of them. As a sector, our efforts are dating back in 2006 when the Ministry of Education and Sports issued out a circular banning out violence against children in schools. And of course, that alone has yielded to a number of interventions. As a sector, I think we are proud to say that we are spearheading a lot of work in terms of protecting our children against violence in schools. We've come up with a national strategic plan on elimination of violence. against children in schools, which we are implementing in several districts in Uganda. And here we are looking at empowering our children, empowering teachers, empowering parents and communities to say no to violence against children in schools. But of course, we also realize that our teachers, some of our teachers, not all, but some of our teachers are the perpetuators. And of course, you're seeing more developments in terms of the media, in terms of other programs,
All right.
when people are coming out to report these cases.
Okay.
Before, it was not the case. So
We've had on this show, we've seen in the media that it goes as high as head teachers. You know, by the time head teachers are doing this, it surely is beyond just a problem and becomes a crisis. We need to go for a break. When we come back from the break, we'll pick up with you to finish your point. Let's go for a break right now. Welcome back from the break. Thank you very much for keeping it here on Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel, and today we're looking at the issue of sexual violence in institutions of learning. Our guests, the Honorable Anna Deke, National Female MP, the Honorable Matthias Mpuga, he's the Shadow Education Minister and Masaka Municipality MP, Madam Susan Acheng from Uganda Women's Network, UONET, and Madam Angela Nakafero, Agenda Officer from the Ministry of Education. In the audience, the spokesperson of the Uganda Police Force, Mr. Afande Emilian Kayima. We also have in the audience students, we have lecturers and other ordinary Ugandans. We will come to the audience very soon to ask their questions. But so the ministry, you saw a report in relation to what happened in the Central Lawrence schools. The issue of Chivuli Secondary School came up. Makerere University, the lecturer who was abusing girls and others. What has the ministry done after all these reports and all these things coming to light?
well, I think straight in addition to the kind of reports that you're talking about, the sector also conducted research, has taken a number of research. In 2012, we conducted a study on the safety and security of our children in schools. And of course, it also highlighted quite a number of issues. Violence is high. And against that background, the education sector in the Education Act of 2008 bans violence against children, especially cases that are perpetrated by teachers. And in that particular law, it provides for cancellation of the teaching license in case the teacher is found guilty.
All right, let's just take an example here. Honorable Adeke actually highlighted the fact that the headmaster in question in Chivuli SS had come from another school where he had showed the same, you know, he perpetrated the same actions and he was transferred. It is not uncommon that teachers violate students and they are transferred. Do we have a record of people actually being disciplined beyond just being transferred to another school?
Well, the issue is not transferring teachers who are perpetuators. The issue is dealing with the teachers who are perpetuators according to the law. And of course, the case of Chivuli has been under investigation by the Ministry of Education and Sports. And of course, the decision at the end of the day has to be informed by what is coming out of the investigations. In most cases, the sector is challenged by the fact that people pull out of such cases and the investigations are never done up to their conclusion.
Logical conclusion.
So given the administrative and the legal procedures that are supposed to be taken by the sector is challenged in terms of taking what kind of decisions.
All right, let's bring the police in because you talk about investigations not being concluded and therefore correct action cannot be taken. On the part of police, how big is this problem and what is police doing?
It is a big problem, as everyone else has said here. It's a challenge to everyone, so we must wake up, all of us. But we must keep it into our mind that sex as a crime is a crime of shame. Many people, especially the victims, it's very hard for them to come out and say it. When they come out to say it, they're instead victimized. They are blamed for A, B, C, D. So there is that inhibition for them not to say it. And there is a time limit also. Some of them hold it until they can't hold it anymore and say it when it's too late, and investigations are commenced when it's too late, when evidence cannot be found, when people have moved. And because it takes a little more time, the victim telling this story many times, they get tired and give up. And once they give up, the case dies. And when it dies, so the suspect is exonerated because he was not found guilty. And now invents the new tricks of doing this elsewhere. So we see that happening.
All right.
So what are we doing about it?
Yes.
Apart from investigating and prosecuting offenders, we popularize the different departments that handle this and come out through our community policing programs to tell people that, look here, we are not going to judge you. We are going to fully understand you when you come to us. Maybe not many people have come to the police because some tell you they don't even visit the police. It's better you visit the police. So school programs must factor in the police intervention, the proactive police intervention, so that school children see the police as the face of their protection. We find also that those who abuse children especially are not strangers, yet the norm by parents, by everyone else who is concerned, tells children to guard against strangers. Strangers are not our biggest problems. The people we know, the uncles, the teachers, those we know. And the law, the Penal Code Act is clear. But do we know it?
Okay.
Again.
You've talked about the law. Certain people have said that it's the law that's weak. As police, the one that goes ahead and implements the law, are there provisions that you would need in order to facilitate your work in dealing with the issue of sexual violence?
Our feeling is that the law is good enough, but any additions are
strengthen it would be
welcome.
Okay.
For example, if a teacher sexually harasses the learner, the law is very stringent. The law is very tough. That's aggravated defilement. And the defilement has ceased to be an issue of the girls being victims. Even boys are included because they are equally harassed sexually. So
All right.
for us, in as far as the Penal Code Act is concerned, the law is good. But there are other things that affect that. Our homes, domestic violence is rampant. When you check our crime statistics, our annual crime statistics, it's appalling. It's not good at home. So if there is no peace at home, you can just tell what happens elsewhere.
All right.
And this unfolds, and there is a huge problem. But it's not insurmountable. We can handle if we choose to.
All right, we need to open up for questions and comments.
My name is Tumsime Joseph, a student. My question goes to, I'm concerned that what Honorable Minister Deke talked about.
Honorable, they've made you a minister. But
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The committee which they just introduced to look into the issue of sexual harassment. That Mrs. Nakave talked about that 2006 when the Minister of Education brought in the idea of sexual violence. That was
sent a circular out. Yes, please go ahead.
That was 2006.
Yes.
And right now we're in 2018. These vices have been going on in schools, and these students who are being affected by this, they can't come out because sometimes they are being threatened. And we, the people in the society, schools, the teachers, we know, some of the teachers know that this is going on, but also are being threatened maybe by their bosses that this and this may happen. So the system still continues. And this has affected education in Uganda. For example, I'll give an example in Makerere. We lost the MasterCard sponsorship because of the issue of what? Of sexual harassment. And this has made some people not to join university because of that.
All right.
Now, Mr. Emilian talked about police handling the case. But these are people who are committing this. They are big people in society, whereby at the side they'll speak to if a parent reports the case to the police, some of the police officer in return will first talk to the person who committed the crime. And that can't do anything because they'll sort the issue out from there.
All right.
And that goes out.
All right, thank you.
Gladys Namboza.
Yes, Gladys.
Yeah, I would like to comment on Miss Adeke's point. She said they formed a committee in April, that is 6 months ago, and then until now, they're still investigating. 6 months. But then we have these things still ongoing. The crimes are still ongoing in those institutions. And just to remind you that these incidences don't take place only in schools. The people that you leave free out there as headmasters or chancellors or whatever, they still have companies out there, and we are job seekers. Imagine I go to seek for a job, satisfied at the end of the day that I have done my interview, and then only a boss to call me at night asking for different things off work. So do I have to be satisfied as a job seeker after all these years in school?
Thank you very much, Gladys. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Seth Nyesiga, a student of Chambogo University. Credit to you, Honorable Adeke, for tabling this to the floor of Parliament, the sexual harassment bill. You actually inspire me. So you never know, one time I will succeed you.
As a female youth MP.
As an MP.
Please go ahead.
Credit to you also, Honorable Matthias Impuga, because you said you're ready to support the bill. I urge you all members of Parliament to support it so that it can go ahead. My question to RPF, Mr. Kaima, how safe
PRO of police.
PRF
yes.
of police. How safe is this person who is ready to come out and speak up against sexual harassment?
Okay.
Because they are there fearing that something may be done, something wrong may be done to them. So which assurance does it comes out from the police that these people are safe?
Okay.
So that they can speak up.
All right. Let's
Thank you.
respond to those questions. We will take another round of questions. And Honorable Mpuga, I'd like to start with you. People seem to be happy about what Parliament is doing, but they feel like Parliament is being too slow, and yet these crimes are continuing to happen.
Yeah, very true, but I need to bring the audience into perspective of the fact that parliamentary procedures generally are slow processes. Yeah, right now we are into, the bill is at the stage of public consultations. Ordinarily that should be the last stage where we really want to input what the people out there feel, because this should be the people's law. You don't want to have a bill, a law coming from top, descending down. The people must input into this law that can reflect their fears and their aspirations, or their desires for that matter. I agree, I would have loved to have a law in 1 week, but our processes are very slow, eternally slow, but you need to appreciate the fact that the bill is there, and there's a lot of warmth in Parliament to receive it and support it.
Okay.
That for me is adequate.
All right. Honorable Adeke, there is the proposed bill and consultations are taking place, but there's also your motion. What's happening with that? Because somebody did state that you brought this issue to the floor of Parliament 6 months ago. I know a committee was formed maybe in August or what have you, but isn't this also too slow? Maybe for the bill we understand, because a bill has got a process through which it should go, but you raised an issue on the floor of Parliament.
Yes. I'd really like to apologize. I would have had it my way that the committee was named the instance the motion was passed, but we went on recess, and so the committee was named around in about August. But I know that the committee will finish its work by November, because the law has to pass, and already the proceedings in our committee, in the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, are factoring in some of the information that is being received.
All right. Mr. Chen, you are a lawyer. Issues of evidence came up.
Yes.
How can that be handled?
Now, if I may play devil's advocate, there was a remark from the audience that survivors, victims of sexual offenses, usually their cases fail to proceed to a logical conclusion because people have connections to the top. The law operates on evidence. And if the prosecutor does not have the required evidence to present before court, the judge is going to be handicapped. They will not be able to rule in a manner that is that will dispense justice for the survivor. Now, evidence for sexual offenses, already like I said, these are acts that take place in privacy, you know. But also, usually there is a time delay. If that evidence is not collected by the police, then there is nothing to go on. There's also the question of witnesses. It's not only the survivors that are intimidated. I have been in situations where witnesses back out. They say, no, I am being harassed in the village, I'm being threatened, I cannot continue. There is also the case of witnesses, the survivors themselves cracking deals with the perpetrators. And when that case fails, you will not hear that the survivors backed out. The complainants have settled out of court. What you shall hear is that the lawyers were compromised. The magistrate was given money.
Or police didn't do good enough investigation.
Do its job. Yes, so evidence is crucial, but with sexual offenses, it is difficult to collect.
All right.
Especially even in certain new offenses like the verbal ones.
Okay. All right, let's go for a break. We will pick up with the questions that haven't been answered after the break. Welcome back from the break. Thank you very much for keeping it here on Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel, and today we're interrogating the issue of sexual violence, especially in learning institutions. Before we went for the break, we were responding to a couple of questions that had been asked. And spokesperson of police, one of the issues that was raised is the safety of the victims and witnesses, because a case survives on the evidence brought by these.
It's important to say this. It's a hard fact, but we need to say it. It's not going to be easy. It has always not been easy. We do what it takes to protect them. We need to do more in terms of witness protection mechanisms to protect them. We need to do more in that direction. But it's important to empower all our children, all our people, to know that's the fight worth fighting. If it has happened and we keep quiet about it, then it's going to happen again and again and again. So our people must know that's a fight that we must fight. Secondly, our norms, our cultures, really, there is too much secrecy around sex. Do parents easily talk about these things? Children usually challenge us. They will ask this and this, and we call them pseudonames, and we cannot explain this and that. So when it happens, even now, are we telling them what evidence we need? For example, if a girl is sexually harassed, what evidence do we need? We need to say this before it happens to us so that you can now think through what you need to preserve. A girl will get her pants, for example, if she has been sexually harassed, go throw or burn it because it traumatizes her to look at that dress. Yet this is the evidence we need. You take time to report this. All this. So it's not going to be easy. It has not been easy, but the determination is there. What we need is to break the silence around it, to take away the trauma and tell these children, all of them, that it's about them. They can fight this fight to the end. And there are good people out there, so we can leverage on that.
All right. There was the issue of intimidation and big people, getting in touch with your bosses and they get off the hook.
Well. Largely, it's a belief, but we also know that corrupt tendencies are there in all our sectors. All we need to know is to be empowered to know what is required, because the expectations of our people, usually the victim, I go to the police, I tell the story, I'm a very honest person. I think they will believe me, arrest the other fellow, lock him up forever. It is not going to happen like that. So the earlier programs that we do, proactive programs, at home, within the communities, will break the ice. And what you are doing today, I guess, is a good activity in that direction. Can we all pick it up from there?
All right. Madam Nakafero, do you actually give this kind of education in school so that the learners know what they should do if they are abused?
Precisely, that's what we are doing within our schools. We are training our learners on the different forms of violence and the precautions they need to take. We are also supporting the teachers to support these children to start reporting cases of violence to the respective leadership within the school. We are also working closely with other line ministries like Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, We are working closely with the Uganda police. We are reporting the cases that come to us to the Uganda police, so the child helpline. And of course, what we are challenging them to do is to support us to deal with these cases to the conclusion.
All right, let's take some more questions. I have a gentleman right next to Afande.
Thank you very much. My name is Frank Mwesigwa Kangwaje.
Yes, Frank.
I'm a student. My comment is, one is, you see the issue of St. Lawrence, we had to wait that the big boss has to come down. So shall we wait for those men that are giants? They first go down and we raise our complaints because they are everywhere.
All right. All right. We don't have much time.
And by names of Chabe Mwebaze, I'm a student
Mwebaze.
of Chambogo. I'm asking these people, except from the law, have you done any inventory techniques of grabbing these people before they commit crime? Because, for instance, like you are in a school, there is tight boundaries, and you cannot report any case outside, to the police officers. So it is so hard for you to go out and report. So I have an inventory idea. I don't know if you can take it or.
Good thing is you're seated next to the police.
Yeah.
But okay,
My
very
inventory
quickly.
idea is, if most of these schools in local areas have suggestion boxes that are opened at least monthly by the police station, not by the teachers, not by the headmasters. Because sometimes when they are opened at school, exactly at school, the cases will be closed from there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that idea. I have a gentleman in a suit at the back. Yes, sir. Are you a lecturer?
No.
Oh.
My name is Masawa Hassan.
Yes, Hassan.
I am a lawyer by profession. I should hasten to add on Afande Kaima's submission that the issue of sexual harassment then was a stereotype affiliated to only the girl child. But as of now, sexual harassment is both to girls and the boys. This discussion about sexual harassment needs honest opinion. I have two questions and two comments. I'll begin with the comments. The issue of consolidation is warmly welcome. But I think before we even go to this step, my opinion as a lawyer is that the laws in existence are sufficient to deal with the problem. But if the issue should be consolidation, yes, the laws are existing, so you're putting them together. Has the issue been putting the laws together or implementation of the laws?
Okay, thank you. My name is Silva Tanga Owor. I'm a journalist. I work with Veros Radio Tororo. I will speak for the rural community in Tororo. There was a case reported by actual NBS about 2-3 months ago about there is a private primary school called Popany in Tororo, that's Mirkit sub-county. One of the involved in sexual harassment, actually he was engaged with the boys in sexual acts at that school. When NBS reported this guy was arrested and was taken to police. A few days later, before we knew it, before he could even reach courts of law, police released him. We don't know on bond or how, but he has disappeared since then. Now, in the rural community, we believe that when somebody disappears, they will go for about 10, 5, 15 years, and that case is dead. So what happens then after this?
All right, thank you for that question. Unfortunately, we can't take more questions because we are out of time. But let's start from the Ministry of Education. I don't know if you know about the case he just raised.
Well, I'm hearing the case from him, but I'm going to get more details and follow up.
All right, if we could find out from you a way forward, what do we do from this point on?
Of course, issues of violence are more complicated. What we need to do is to support our children to be able to report cases, but also strengthening the systems to be able to deal with the cases to their logical conclusions.
All right. Strengthening systems in order to deal with cases to logical conclusion. That brings in police. What's police going to do?
Well, the determination to handle these cases consistently and the support of all the duty bearers is called for. Of course, we know that really sexual violence takes two directions, intimidation and inducement. So, those who intimidate, those who violate our children use those two tricks. They induce you, they tell you nice stories, or they intimidate and they can kill, and they surely do. So we need to strengthen these support systems and get good results. And for those who have initiatives like my neighbor here, let them come up so we can find possibly the next way of doing these things and getting better results. But also parents. Can parents open up for the first time? Can they speak with their children? We have less time with our children, but that time we have, is it qualitative enough?
All right. Susan, what other role do, beyond the parents, the society, what role do we have to play in dealing with this issue of sexual violence?
Yes, first and foremost, sexual violence needs to be given prominence as a criminal offense, as an illegality, because we live in a society.
Just before you move from that, you say criminal offense, but we've had cases of they negotiate it and it ends there.
Yes.
But that can't be, that's not how criminal cases are settled.
Yes, that is actually part of the education that needs to happen in our communities, that certain offenses must start at the police and proceed through the relevant pathways. It must not be negotiated at any point. And that is one of the reasons why sexual violence actually thrives, because the perpetrators and the survivors will sit and negotiate, and the next perpetrator will know that he can get away in the very same way. Right. Yes, but there's also a need for people to be educated about what to do. There are cases where people do not even know where to report, simply because already they are going to be asked, but how? Why were you there? What were you doing?
One time a minister said if a girl wears a short skirt, then
they deserve to get defiled. Yes. There is also the question of the capacity of the duty bearers. Do they know how to interact with survivors of violence? Because if a girl has been defiled and she shows up to report, even at the school, the sick bay at school, she'll be asked, but what were you wearing? Why were you out of your dorm at that time? So that is what enables sexual violence to thrive. And that education for the community to know that it is wrong is one of the ways that, in addition to legislation and enforcement of it, that will provide more protection to people from sexual violence.
All right. Honorable Mpuga, the committee is handling this. There's a bill before Parliament. As the shadow minister, what are you going to do to ensure that these things are expedited? And how are you going to keep an eye on the committee so that we don't have these issues of a committee just dying out, a report not coming to the floor of Parliament? Yeah.
I think three issues from me. First, to respond to my grand brother's perspective, he's right that the laws are adequate. That is, say, like scattered notes, we're trying to consolidate and highlight. Because there are people, perhaps may not know, that there are about almost 6 legislations that relate to sexual violence. And consolidating them would make this a more highlighted problem for everyone to follow at every level. So it's the wish of some of us. Then two, the fact that I think a lot is changing in our society. At the tertiary and university level, I would like to see a more prominent role of the learners, the students, because you're much more armed than 2 generations ago in terms of making information come to the fore and bear on some of these perpetrators. How much information is shared between the students to be able to support each other? I believe we need to speak to our learners at the universities and the colleges, because they are able to support, the systems in place to wipe out this vice in the tertiary institutions. What do you use your telephones for? I mean, this WhatsApp about these problems and these perpetrators and make them a national shame. Perhaps that way we can wipe them out. All right. Then, as political leaders, of course, our duty is unchangeable. We need to take charge of our duty. We are not going to hurry the process of Parliament, but we can make sure that actually the law comes to pass.
All right.
Because that's what we need to do.
Okay.
And I'm contented that where we are, it's inevitable it will come on the floor of Parliament. Everyone is following up. All stakeholders are following up. There's no hiding place for it.
All right.
It will come.
You are a school owner.
Yes.
How are you ensuring that these things are not happening in your school?
Actually, we have an anti-sexual harassment policy in the school. If you fall on the wrong side, I'm afraid you pack your bags. And if somebody reports you, if we detect an attempt, we go for you. If you are reported, we can only hasten you to police. Thankfully, I haven't gotten any such case. We have a policy in place. When one is admitted, when a kid is admitted, it's one of the documents that are given to the learner as part of the admission document to know that there's a policy. If you have a problem, this is the mechanism for reporting. It's very, very important. Otherwise, short of that, you're going to be in problems with your workers and with the students and with the law.
All right.
As a lawyer and as an administrator, as a political leader, I am aware of this. And
All
very
right.
alert.
Honorable Adeke, as the person who moved this motion on the floor of Parliament, from this point, what do you want to see? But also, you have a huge constituency. What do you want to see your constituents doing so that this issue of sexual violence, especially in learning institutions, comes down?
I would like to see my constituents speaking more openly about this, sharing experiences. There is so much that we can benefit from peer-to-peer talks. You see, people of the same age can talk more freely than when they are speaking to superiors. And if we facilitate them to be able to speak to each other, then probably the culture of secrecy can slowly be destroyed. Someone mentioned about waiting for the big people to fall before we can go for them. I think that it's important for us to go for them when they're in the high places so that we can set good examples. But away from that, this is beyond just the perpetrator. It's about everyone else around him that facilitates his actions. For instance, the head teacher of Chibuli had guardians. He has godfathers in the ministry. He has godfathers in big places of leadership that have covered him up. When something was reported, then the negotiator was a leader, a counselor, someone of high repute. So even these people who are mediating are going to be got. They are going to become liable. They are equally culpable because they are accomplices to this offense. And so when Council Masaba says that maybe the law, having the bill is not necessary, it's not just about consolidating what we have. It's also providing for sexual offenses that the Penal Code Act did not have. For instance, inserting private parts in someone's mouth is not provided for under the Penal Code Act. Yes, it's not there. Council, you will tell us it's not there. But that is what the lecturer in Makerere University was doing to the girl. He inserted his private parts into her mouth. So there are so many new sexual offenses which the law in its archaic present situation and form does not provide for. So this law, and I beg you to please be patient because we need to breathe life into the law. The law is not dead. New funny things have been developed by human beings about sex, and so we must cover them. That is why we have to have a comprehensive, holistic law. So please be patient because we are trying to make the law as relevant as it should be to this day and age.
All right. Afande, let's sneak in 30 seconds for you to tell us how do you report a sexual violence crime?
And that's where there is a challenge also because you come to the counter and the counter is an open place. But what we have done, having seen that it's very hard for you to come to the counter and say, a man sexually harassed me. It's horrible. It's horrible to say when everybody else is listening. So we have a department of sexual gender-based violence cases desks.
I hope this is not only at Central Police Station.
At stations. And then the Child and Family Protection Unit, where you can easily go. But what is important is for victims or for people out there to have peace with the police. Please, we are your police. Do not think that we are someone else's police. Have peace interacting with us, and you can have the audacity to say, excuse me, I want to speak to you privately. Because these are very hard things to just speak out openly.
All right.
But we are really determined to fight this.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I'll just add, remember to report immediately. Once it happens, report to the police immediately. Afande Emilian Kaima, Madame Angela Nakafero, Madame Susan Acheng, the Honorable Mpuga, Matthias, and the Honorable Anna Deke, and you, our guests here in the Wizards Auditorium. Thank you very much for being a part of Face the Citizens tonight. You watching us at home, sexual violence ends with you. Do something about it. Make sure you report. Thank you for watching Face the Citizens. Until next time, it's a good night. God bless you.